As a project engineer, you will manage a lot of documents. The only effective way to stay on top of all of the resources you will be managing is to adhere to a consistent and organized folder structure. As you will see throughout these modules, you will save files that have been sent to you onto your hard drive, attach files to records in Endeavour, and store files on a common server storage location referred to as the N drive. Let's take a moment to review a local file structure that you should emulate. In this example, we see a folder structure that a project engineer has created on their virtual cloud drive. Notice that the root folder is named according to the project number and project name. Within this we see folders for contract documents, design team documents, project files, RFIs, schedules, and subcontractor files. The temp folder is used to temporarily store files while transferring them to other locations. Many of the folders contain subfolders, as seen here. For example, the project folder further organizes documents by area of focus, such as documents related to project team meetings, or PTMs, documents related to owner-architect meetings, or OACs, and so on. The RFI folder contains a subfolder to store responses. The subcontractor folder has a separate folder for each subcontractor, and each of those folders has 4 more subfolders for further organized documents sent to, and received from, subcontractors. Take a few moments to set up your folder structure. Then click Continue to proceed. Before we dive into the details, let's review where these steps are located in relation to the big picture. The tasks covered in this module occur between the time a contract has been awarded and the material is fabricated. The steps you will follow are very specific. Let's take a look. The overall submittal process involves the following basic steps. Keep in mind that we will investigate each of these steps in greater detail, but this overview will help you identify the big picture. First, you will contact the subcontractor to introduce yourself, identify your involvement with the project, and discuss the expediting list. You will address all aspects of the list, and identify required submittals needed from the subcontractor. You will also answer any questions they may have about the process. Once you receive the submittals, you will make sure the electronic copies are received into Endeavour, and that you've begun the tracking process in the submittal log. One very important aspect of APE's job is to review the submittals for compliance. Any submittals not in compliance will be rejected and require resubmission. Submittals that are in compliance will be packaged up and transmitted to the design team for approval. The design team includes representatives from every trade as well as the architects. This process will involve generating a submittal package, and loading the information into Bluebeam. The PE will reprocess submittals that are rejected by the design team, in order to obtain corrected versions from the subcontractors. Submittals that are approved will also be distributed to the subcontractor after review. Some of the tools that you will use to facilitate communication with the subcontractor include a welcome aboard letter and a submittal fact sheet. Let's take a look. The purpose of the welcome aboard letter is to provide the subcontractor with basic information that is needed in order to achieve optimal communications with the company, and to help them understand how we operate. The letter also serves as a means of informing each subcontractor of contractual obligations and insurance requirements. Project engineers will email this letter to all subcontractors, after they have been awarded a contract for a project. Each letter must be completed in its entirety. The template for the most up-to-date letter can be found in the Project Engineer Resources folder on the N drive. The subcontractor or vendor bears the responsibility for reviewing the contract documents, such as the drawings and specifications, and verifying, by way of shop drawings and product data submittals, that the materials and methods they will use for the project meet the design requirements. The submittal fact sheet identifies the requirements subcontractors must follow when submitting required documents. As with the welcome letter, project engineers will email a completed submittal fact sheet to subcontractors after they have been awarded a contract. The template for the most up-to-date letter can be found in the Project Engineer Resources folder on the N drive. As soon as a vendor, subcontractor, or supplier has an approved contract, or the project engineer has been released by the project manager to make first contact, the PE begins the communication process. The first step is to prepare for the telephone call. This involves reviewing the contract to determine scope of work, reviewing all submittal due dates, milestone dates, release dates and how they affect due dates, reviewing material lead times and scheduled delivery dates, and making sure you are ready to discuss all sections that apply to the subcontractor. For example, a joint sealant may be duplicated among multiple subs, so be sure you've included it where appropriate. You will also complete the welcome aboard letter so that you are ready to review it during the call. Finally, you will schedule the call with the subcontractor, making sure to invite the superintendent. At the beginning of the call, you will introduce yourself and identify what you do. For example, you may indicate that you are there to manage the expediting process, handle all submittals, and act as the liaison between the subcontractor and the design team. You can tell them that you will be sending them a welcome letter that provides a lot of information about interacting with VCC, including all important contact information and how to submit payment applications. It's important that you guide the call and focus on getting the pieces of information you need. The remainder of the call will essentially involve a thorough examination of each expediting item related to the subcontractor. For each expediting item, you will identify all required submittals, and discuss the dates that each submittal must be received, making sure that the submittal dates are reasonable and conform to the contract. You may also need to provide an overview of the approval process, if required. You will also discuss the lead times for each item, making sure to identify any items that require lead times longer than the default 14-day timeframe. You must contact the supplier or manufacturer to verify that material has been ordered for all items having a lead time greater than 14 days. If the subcontractor does not know the lead time for an item, then look in the payments database to find out who the supplier of the item is, then contact them to determine the lead time. It will be necessary to update these lead times in Endeavor either during or immediately after the call. Another thing to consider is to build longer lead times for items containing submittals that are likely to be rejected, such as those with project-specific structural shop drawing requirements. For each delivery, be sure to discuss the submittal log, and ask that any shipping or tracking information be forwarded to you when available. One option is to ask that your email address be included in shipping updates from the supplier. Request all closeout documents that may be available before the substantial completion date, such as operations and maintenance information, care instructions, and so on. For each item, you will also review the required delivery dates and identify any expected delivery phases for the material. While required delivery dates are generated based on the expediting schedule link, it may be beneficial to discuss these required delivery dates with the superintendent before discussing with the subcontractor, as the superintendent can advise you if there are any conflicts between expected delivery dates and what is happening at the project site. For example, the project site may not have room to stage a delivery on a given date, or the project may be running behind schedule. Only the superintendent can advise of these situations. If an item will be delivered in phases, each phase will be tracked under a separate expediting item with its own delivery date. Structural steel is a good example, as it will likely involve phases, such as starting in the northeast corner of the building between grids 1 and 3, then duplicating the items for each phase in other areas. All drawings will be attached to the first expediting item, and subsequent items will be marked "No approval required." With regard to dates and schedules, be sure never to reveal specific schedule information to the subcontractor, and under no circumstances are you to distribute a project schedule. The only schedule you are permitted to discuss is one that has already been included in the sub's contract. You may let them know that project managers will update schedules and contracts when required. Always discuss dates in non-specific general terms. Instead of saying May 1st, you could say the beginning of May, or mid-July, instead of July 15th. Finally, discuss any questions that you or the subcontractor may have regarding the project, and be sure to identify if the subcontractor's scope requires approval from a jurisdictional authority, such as a fire marshal or municipal authority. If so, be sure to identify the scope with the project team to identify who is responsible for handling the process. After this initial call, you will send an email recapping all information that was discussed. You will attach the VCC Welcome Aboard letter, the VCC Submittal Fact Cover Sheet, and a list of required submittals. You will CC the entire project team, including the General Superintendent, the Superintendent, the Senior Project Manager, the Project Manager, and the Scheduler. The subject line of the email should include the project number, project name, subcontractor's name, and reference that this is the first request. After a day or two, you should resend this initial email requesting an update, and change the email subject line to second request. Make sure to offer whatever help or support is needed, and try not to come across as being pushy or inflexible. Now, let's listen to a sample call to see what is involved.
Hey, how we doing? This is Matt Cockburn under VCC calling about the Little Rock Towers project.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Eric. Hey, wanted to make sure you're going to be the point of contact on this one.
I am. Now tell me again what you do with VCC.
I am the project engineer. We handle the submittals and RFIs for VCC.
Okay.
I'm going to be sending you a welcome aboard letter and a submittal fact sheet that kind of gives us a breakdown of our team on this project.
Okay.
Let me ask you, I am going to send you in that list a list of your submittals and materials that you have in your scope.
Okay. Yeah.
But I wanted to go over any materials that you have with a long lead time.
Yeah, that's good because we've got some rebar with a 3 to 4 week lead time after approval for each of the 2 buildings in the project.
Okay, so you have separate shop drawings for each building?
Yeah, we're going to be doing this in phases. So building 1 shop drawings will be in your hands on Wednesday and building 2 by the end of the week.
Awesome. That looks like it falls right in line with our schedule. Let me also ask, when can I expect all of your other submittals, like mixed designs, admixtures, things like that?
Yeah, I was just looking at our contract and it gives us 2 weeks for that, but I think I can get them to you by the beginning of next week. Is that going to work for you?
I think that'll work just fine. Let me ask you, who do you guys get your rebar from?
Oh, we're getting it from Arkansas Steel Reinforcing.
Okay. Do you mind sending me the contact information for your point of contact over there? It is our policy to get contact information for any material that has a lead time over 2 weeks.
Sure, I'll send that information with the submittals if that's okay.
That works for me. And just to go over this one more time, I'm going to be your point of contact for submittals for RFIs. Sounds like rebar for each building takes 3 to 4 weeks after approval.
Yep.
I'll have building 1 by Wednesday and building 2 by end of week.
Yep.
All the submittals at the first part of next week.
Yep.
Sounds like we are doing good.
That sounds like a plan.
I appreciate it, Eric.
Thank you, sir.